This presentation is supported by our regional water supplier, Tarrant Regional Water District. TRWD maintains 4 area lakes and pipelines needed to provide surface water to local water treatment plants so they can clean it to meet drinking water standards for our communities. They also work with many cities in Tarrant County, such as Fort Worth, Arlington, and Mansfield, to provide water conservation programs for the community. Conservation is an important water supply strategy to help meet the needs of a growing population. There are currently 2.3 million people in Tarrant County, and this is expected to double over the next 50 years. This is why TRWD supports many programs that help save water through outdoor watering and gardening education. At SaveTarrantWater.com, you can sign up for free weekly watering advice custom to your location. If you are a resident of Tarrant County, you can sign up for a free sprinkler system checkup where a licensed irrigator comes to your home and provides a comprehensive evaluation of your system with recommendations to reduce water waste. There is also an event calendar where you can find important information about future classes and workshops. TRWD also partners with organizations like Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service and the Tarrant County Master Gardeners to provide educational programs just like this one. Be sure to check out SaveTarrantWater.com and sign up for their free services. Welcome. I cannot wait to share with you guys this information on drought-tolerant plants. I know that last year we had a really bad drought, so a lot of people got frustrated with gardening. And if you've been gardening for a while, you've probably realized that some plants are more tolerant of our environment here and some aren't. So today I will give you those tips, which plants to get, which ones not to get, and hopefully save you some money. So let's get started. My name is Loretta Bailey. As Dr. Dick said, I enjoy teaching the senior education program at TCC. We teach gardening in North Texas. We have a lot of fun out there. So if you're 55 and over, come join us. All right. So are you buying the wrong plants? I'm not trying to pick on this plant. This is a begonia. You may see these in the green leaf form, red, pink, white, and nothing's wrong with it, but I used to buy these plants a lot and some other ones like it. And everything's great in the spring when we're getting all that rain. But then what happens when it's summertime and 100 degrees? They fry. And then you're out there constantly watering, spending your social time watering your plants and being a slave to your plants because they're just frying, dying. Well, it's a waste of money, waste of time, and waste of water. Aren't you tired of it? I got tired of it, so I switched. I'm now doing natives and adapted plants only, so we'll talk about those. Before I begin, I am going to send you guys 4 different handouts. They're basically shopping lists that you can take to the store. They will tell you the size of the plant. Do they like sun? Do they like shade? And just different attributes, characteristics of the plants. I'm going to send those to you. It will take 1 to 3 business days. So be patient with us. Check your email. Absolutely free. The information is from Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. So look out for those. Tarrant County area. Most of you probably have this ugly, hard clay soil. I live in Haslett and I have a lot of this clay soil with rocks in it. Every shovelful, I get a big chunky rock. Roots don't really like it because it's too compacted. Okay, not a lot of oxygen is going through it. It does have some good characteristics. It can hold a lot of water once it's wet. Okay, now when there's cracks because of drought, water just kind of goes through those cracks. But once it does soak up with water, it does retain a lot of nutrients and water. You may have sandy loam soil, which is a mix. So if you have the sand, silt, and clay, your plants will be way happier than those of us who just have clay soil. So what you'll need to do if you have bad soil is amend. Amendments are things like compost, different things with nutrients, peat moss. expanded shale, you may need to add those amendments to make your soil a little more pliable, a little more aerated, so that water and nutrients can go into those roots. You have to have good soil to have happy plants. There's no way around it. You really do. So look at this soil map of Texas. Even in Dallas-Fort Worth, see how we can have such a different variety of soil. Let's say your aunt lives in East Texas, okay? She's bragging about her tomatoes doing really well, or her particular rose is doing well. Well, your soil may not have those same characteristics that hers has to produce such a great looking or healthy plant. So what you need to do is get a soil test. Okay, most master gardeners know this. Okay, my students know this. It's amazing to me how many times I talk about this even to my students, and it'll take them a semester or two to finally go, okay, let me just go get a soil test. If you are sick or you're having some health issues and you go to the doctor will probably want you to get a blood test to figure out what's going on in your system, right? It's the same thing. This is for your soil. So if year after year, season after season, you are planting something and you end up with nitrogen deficiencies, your leaves are shriveled up, just so much yellowing, you're not getting any fruit or flower production like you want, well, you can't look at your soil and guess. You can't say, oh, you must be deficient in calcium or nitrogen. You can't do it. You really have to go get this soil test done. It's only $12. Go get it done. Oh, let me add one more thing. Several of my students, okay, they would tell me, I can't grow this, I can't grow that. Did you get your soil test done? They finally did. Surprising to them, they got a result from Texas A&M stating they had way too much potassium, okay? And so the laboratory told them, do not apply potassium to your soil for 5 years. That's a long time. A lot of times that problem occurs because we're over applying too many chemicals, too many fertilizers, and then you get a buildup. And if you have too many nutrients, not enough, there could be roadblocks, okay? There could be nutrient uptake issues. Plants may not be able to absorb certain nutrients because of this imbalance. So it's very, very important to get the soil test done, and you'll know where to go from there. Here is mine. You'll see here, see where I highlighted this dotted line right here. That is where I pretty much need to be, where my soil needs to be. Here's nitrogen, here's phosphorus, and here's potassium, okay? Look, I have a little too much potassium, okay? Now N, P, K, those are the 3 numbers on fertilizers, okay? Like you might see a 10, 10, 10, or a 20, 10, 20. You've seen that on bags, right? Those are important to note because depending on the plant, like let's say with tomatoes, if you apply too much nitrogen, you're going to grow tomato trees. You're not going to have any fruit because that plant just wants to grow the green. That's what nitrogen does. It wants to help your plant with its green leafy areas. So you really have to know which fertilizer to use depending on what plant it is. Wisteria is nitrogen fixing. So you would never apply a high nitrogen to wisteria, okay? Because it creates its own nitrogen. It actually pulls it from the air. If you give it too much nitrogen, guess what's going to happen? It's going to grow the vine vigorously, probably no flowers. So you need to apply the right fertilizer, and only if needed. I hardly ever use fertilizer, to be honest with you, and we'll talk about that later, but there comes a time and a place where you might need to give your plant a little more oomph, okay? So see why it's so important. And also I found out my soil's pH, it's 7.8, which is moderately alkaline. Most plants actually prefer slightly acidic soil, most, not all. So let's say that I want to plant some of those pretty azaleas that are not native here. And I have in the past when I was a little younger. I've pretty much planted every plant imaginable just to see how it did. And it did okay, but every year I noticed a decline in its health. And I noticed that I had to give it more acidifying fertilizers. You'll see fertilizers like that. It'll be labeled for azaleas, camellias, things like that. It's because it's a fertilizer that has some either sulfur or some type of acidifier in it to help that plant. So I personally don't want to deal with plants like that anymore. I don't like to use chemicals if at all possible. I really don't want to fertilize if I don't have to. So, get this soil test. It'll show you what you need. Please read this. What is a native plant or tree? Okay, so native plants, trees, they are meant to be here. Okay, they get what they need out of our soil. They don't need all this extra care and love and babysitting from us. They're meant to be here. They like our soil the way it is. Now, they're not going to be mad at you if you add a little compost or something like that, but they really don't need anything. Okay, why should we choose native plants? Like I said, they don't require fertilizers, better heat tolerance, drought tolerance, provide shelter and food for our native wildlife, promote biodiversity. My screen here is kind of cut off. Native plants are beautiful and meant to be here. So if you keep fighting the fight in your garden, you find yourself wasting money and buying the same plants year after year because they just, fizzle out, turn brown. Look to native plants, okay? You're probably gonna have a lot better luck and save money. Here are adapted plants. Please read this. Okay, so they're not native, but they're plants that do very well here. They've been introduced. This is a little rock garden that I have, and that is yellow sedum. You basically break off a piece. I don't even know exactly which one that is because somebody gave me a little piece and I just planted it and I've propagated ever since. Just break off a piece, put one here, put one there. And after about a season, you've got about a foot round mound. Very drought tolerant. It's not from here, but it does very well. It does great in pots, and you don't even have to bring those pots in at the end of the year. Is anybody sick of bringing in pots at the end of the year? I am. My living room used to look like a jungle during the winter months, and I did not like that. So now I do not increase my collection of plants. If it's tender and needs to be brought in, forget it. I like low maintenance. I have a big yard to take care of, so I don't want anything that I have to dote on. Unless you're new to gardening, you've probably heard of this, the plant hardiness zone map. And you can kind of see we're about right here. We're in 8A. So your cousins that live up here in Maine, or your cousins in South Florida, way down here, they're going to have a different experience with different plants, okay? Make sure you buy plants and look at the label. It has to have zone 8 in it. So if it says plant hardiness zones 9 through 11, it's too cold here. Our first freeze will just kill them. They will not come back. Those are tender plants, not good for us. Make sure our zone 8 is on that plant tag. Remember this last year? I think most of you probably went through this. You just couldn't keep enough water on your lawn. The city restricts us to twice a week watering. And really that's all you need. Actually, you can even get by with once a week. Hopefully you have your sprinklers off these days. I haven't had mine on for a long time. I think I've only ran them twice this year because everything I have in the backyard is drought tolerant. I don't keep anything that's going to die on me. So this is what my lawn looked like last year. It was not looking so good. It was stressed out. People could not keep vegetable gardens going. I was volunteering at the Home and Garden Show in Fort Worth last year, And I had so many newbie, new gardeners come up to me and say, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I planted my vegetable garden and, I did everything. And I said, even master gardeners can't keep their vegetable gardens productive this year. It's just too dry. No matter how much water you put on your garden, all the dry areas just suck it away. Okay. So it's just too dry. So anyways, when this happened, I didn't increase my water. I just let it be. I just did my regular cycle and I knew it would just bounce right back. So all my neighbors were just pouring water on their lawns. Sadly, I didn't do it. I just said, hey, these are live oaks, my Mexican feathergrass in the back, my cedar elm, all those are natives. They're established. They will do just fine. Let it be. Let nature take its course. And guess what? Everything survived without me having to stress. Before I go into these plant suggestions, let me also talk to you about this. When you are landscaping your yard, you can't just go out and buy a bunch of deciduous perennials, okay? Because what's going to happen in winter? You're going to look out and just see a bunch of brown mulch, right? Hopefully you mulch your yard. You really should, to retain that moisture and to keep the soil cooler during the hot season. But you really need to consider all seasons, not just today. A lot of people will make the mistake of going to Callaway's, Home Depot, Lowe's during the spring season right now. And they're like, ooh, tulips, which don't like our soil, by the way. Look at these pansies. Look at, they're looking at all the cool season bloomers and they're just planting them, not knowing that they're probably going to last 1 to 3 months if you're lucky, 3 months if you're lucky. So know which plants to get. The list that we're going to send you will have all that. And I'm also going to show you some websites that I even use when I'm kind of baffled and not sure, if somebody asked me or a student asked me, hey, what should I plant? It may not be top of mind. So I'll refer to it too for, oh yeah, that's right. Those do well here. That's right. So I will give you all of those websites at the very end. So here is, I'm not a photographer and the colors are really bad here, but this is my straight back view from the living room. And it's about 90% native. The Bermuda grass, of course, is not native, but that's what I was given when we built this house. But let me just point to what everything is. These are live oaks in the back. I've got some magnolias right here, desert willow. Here's another desert willow. I've got some yuccas. Okay, here's a yucca. And I've got some dwarf yaupons scattered throughout. And this blonde hair looking stuff in the back is beautiful. It sways back and forth when the wind blows. That is Mexican feathergrass. It's a short native grass. It will repopulate. I started with 4 or 5 about 7 years ago, and I have over 100 that I have purposely planted. I pluck them out where they have naturally reseeded and I put them where they need to go, or I share them with friends and family. Because every time somebody comes over, they look back, you would think they'd say, oh, what are these flowers? What are these? Because I have flowers on the left and right. They're not in this picture, but they always say, what is that in the back? What is that? They love it. And I do too. I like them better than my flowers, to be honest. Oh, by the way, that was early summer. Okay. So we're thinking about these different seasons as we design our flower beds or our landscape. Early summer. This is going to be late summer. Notice I had some potted plants here. Look in the previous one right here with some annuals. I normally only plant little tender annuals in pots because I don't want to buy a lot. You really need a lot to make any kind of impact. Like if I put annuals back here in this area, I'd have to spend hundreds of dollars to populate that area. So I just get a little bit if I feel like it that year and put them in pots so that they stand out, but I'm also not, spending an arm and a leg. So that's one little trick. It kind of highlights them when you put them in pots. So here is late summer. So I put those pots closer to underneath my patio for some shade because at this point it's about 100 degrees in the late summer. Now, this picture, we got kind of lucky because the grass is still green. Normally by this time, my grass is kind of that burnt green, kind of a brown color. I don't care because everything else takes the show. But notice how these adagio grasses, it's a maiden grass. They kind of steal the show during this time. And there's the Mexican feathergrass in the back, you know, whipping its hair around. And these are too, there's a lot of movement in the backyard. It's not a static, boring look. Things are moving. You see birds moving around, but the grass moving around. And I'll normally put some kind of flowering plant right up here. But look, there's the yucca. By late summer, the flowers are spent. So I do cut those down. There's some more yuccas here, but different things pop out in different seasons. And by the way, these aren't year to year. I just kind of looked in my phone and kind of looked at the date and okay, that's summertime. This is springtime. So you'll notice that the trees are a little bigger in some pictures, but you'll get the idea. So this is the winter or dormant season. You know, it's nothing to brag about or call, you know, mom to come look at, but you know, their structure. It's really, really important for you guys to go out and get some evergreens like the magnolia, maybe a live oak. Your yard may be too small for a live oak. Okay, so there are other things you can get. Cherry laurel is a nice smaller evergreen. These dwarf magnolias are a good one. But look at this. This is my desert willow. It's bald in the winter. What would happen if I only planted like cedar elms instead of live oak, desert willow, possum haw holly? It would just be a blank canvas with not much there, just sticks and mulch. So keep that in mind as you go shopping. The shopping list I'm going to give you, make sure you look to see, hey, is it evergreen? And I'm not saying go out and buy all evergreen, but buy a good mix so that you always have some kind of structural skeleton, some kind of structure there throughout the year. So before, you probably didn't notice, but I have these little dwarf yaupons there. They're scattered throughout all around my yard. And it gives me that structure that I need. So it's not just plain. So hopefully that's clear to you. We're going to talk about specific plants now, drought and heat tolerant plants. Now, this is not a complete list. We only have about an hour, so I'm going to go through these pretty quick and then also show you those websites so that you can look at additional pictures. And, you know, if your yard is shady, mine's primarily sunny, but if it's primarily shady, the websites, you just click shady. It'll say, how do you want to use this plant? Is it going to be in a flower bed? Are you looking for a tree, a ground cover? You can get very, very specific. I'm also going to send you top 20 shade perennials and top 20 sun perennials for North Texas, okay? Not for Maine, not for New York, but for here, for North Texas. Okay, let's start with native plants. The dwarf yaupon, you know, some people will argue, oh, that's not really a native. That is true. It's like a partial native, but we kind of, you know, roundabout say it is a native. It's a cross. But we do classify, you know, Texas A&M classifies it as a native here. It's an evergreen, super drought tolerant. And I love this plant. It's my go-to. I love planting it in the fall. You can plant it in the spring too, but just kind of dot it in your yard so that you've got some of that green structure in the background, especially behind some perennials. It looks really good. The yaupon, this is the tree. Don't confuse it with the dwarf yaupon. This is the tree or large shrub. This is a young one. And in the winter, you will see red berries on it if it's a female. Especially, there's one called Pride of Houston that has more berries on it. If you want one that kind of looks like this, there's another native called possum holly. Now that one's deciduous, but it has really beautiful red berries all over it when it's cool. Very drought tolerant. Red yucca. All types of yucca are drought tolerant, but this is the red. There's also yellow. I've seen white. And here are some here that I've just kind of propagated from a bigger clump. You can dig them up and propagate them very easily. Purple coneflower. A lot of master gardeners get frustrated with this one because they plant, you know, a dry root, or, you know, they dig up a little baby from somebody else's house and it'll grow the green leaves that year when it's really young. Well, it will not flower until year number 2. So don't give up on it thinking it doesn't like your soil. Wait till the next year and you'll see, oh, wow, look at all these flowers. This is a flower bed of mine that really doesn't get any water. It almost lives off of rainwater alone because it's blocked by some big shrubs that I have where the sprinkler system is. And I'm telling you, I'll go over there and try to dig up some babies for friends. And it's like, you know, pretty much like a brick over there. And these things just do so well. I don't even have to baby them. Salvia gregii. There's red, pink. There's even like bicolored ones, hot lips, purple, you name it. They're great. The only downside, I try to give you guys the good and the bad of everything. The only downside I found with this plant is it breaks easily. So if you have a lot of rabbits or dogs that are trampling over your yard, you might see some broken limbs, but they bounce right back. And I do shear these down. Once the flowers are spent, go ahead and shear it down to the green leaves, and it'll give you another rush of blooms again. This is frog fruit. When I first was introduced to this plant, I wasn't really impressed by it. I just thought, oh, it kind of looks weedy, but actually I love it now. I started off with a little 4-inch pot just last year. And as you can see here, I planted it all over the place. What I love about it, okay, you know, inflation is real. Prices of just about everything has gone up. And I need a lot of mulch in my yard. I have a lot of flower beds that I've created. I am now using this as a living mulch, okay? It propagates so easily. You can really just cut off a piece, stick it in the dirt, just make sure you water it well for about a week or 2 to help get it established, let it go. Or you can put it in pots and let it root, then plant it outside. Very drought tolerant. And it has a cute little flower on it that our little bees like so much. It can get a little aggressive, so plant it where you want it. I do trim it and then I propagate and then give those to friends. But I'm telling you, if you want to save on mulch, this is the way to go. But do keep an eye on it. Like I said, don't hate me because it is pretty aggressive. Mexican feathergrass. This is that back area of my yard that I was telling you guys about. You know, a lot of people will argue that these have to be cut down. I never cut mine down, and I've had them for many, many years. I do brush them with an old hairbrush to pull out any brown, you know, old dried strands, and that's it. I don't fertilize it. I don't do anything. I just kind of let it grow wild. And any little babies that shouldn't be where they are, I pot them up or stick them in my compost. Excuse me. Texas sage. This is a great one for full sun. It won't do as well in part sun. It gets kind of leggy. As it ages, it can get leggy too, even in full sun. Just hack it down. Just what I would do is just cut maybe some of the branches or some of the twigs inside of it, and those will bush out for you, or just shear the whole thing down and let it bush out. Desert willow. I propagate these things all the time from seed. My original one is this white one, and it crosses with my neighbor's dark pink. And I end up with bicolored ones that are half pink, half, I don't know, what is that, fuchsia? Some of them are dark pink. I just love it. It's a native. The downside of this one is it can get messy when it defoliates in the winter and the flowers can drop. So I would put it in a flower bed where the flowers can drop into your lawn. And then when you mow, they just all disappear. Don't put it next to your pool like I did. It's still worth it, but don't put it next to your pool. And you may not want to put it where it's draping over a patio because you're going to have to sweep it up all the time. But if you've got an area in the back of your yard and you want a no fuss, doesn't need water, flowering, small tree or shrub, this is my go-to. Blackfoot daisy. Okay, I'm going to go pretty quick now. Blackfoot daisy, this thrives on neglect. As a matter of fact, I propagated a little piece and planted it really close to one of my sprinklers one time, and I didn't know, and it kept failing and declining. Come to find out, it was just getting too much water. So, I mean, don't you like plants like that you can just neglect them and they say thank you? So that's this plant right here, Blackfoot daisy. It does like a lot of sun. Gara, This is whirling butterflies. It's very prolific. I get babies that pop up everywhere. I dig them up, plant them where I want them. Spineless cactus. This is in the front, which, you know, we use our garage to get in and out of the house, really. I don't really visit the front door, so it's a neglected area. But I just threw some dianthus seeds in there, let it all kind of grow crazy, and I just think it looks great. Very low maintenance. Lantana. Not all lantana is native. Like the purple lantana is not native, but it still does very, very well here. Let's talk about adapted plants. I know some people laugh at the crepe myrtle, but it does really well here, and it blooms its heart out. It is susceptible to scale and some powdery mildew and stuff like that. But, you know, read up on what it needs. It needs good air circulation, needs full sun. If you've got those criteria, then plant one. Lamb's ears. A friend of mine gave me a little plant that had about 3 leaves on it, and I have propagated that thing by division. You just dig it up. Once it grows and spreads, dig up the clump, and as long as your little stem has a little bit of root on it, plant that. And then at the end of that season, it's going to be a beautiful round rosette of leaves like you see here. I'm telling you, this thing is tried and true, drought tolerant. As a matter of fact, if you overwater it, it'll get root rot. So it likes to be neglected. Love it. Also, see right here, I wrote Helen von Stein. I don't like the regular variety that you predominantly see. I like Helen von Stein because it has bigger ears, you know, the bigger leaves, and it doesn't flower. It's rare to flower. It might flower a little purple flower here and there, but it's a very clean, good-looking lamb's ear that doesn't become weedy when it flowers. Color guard yucca. Different variations of it. I like to put these in pots because I don't have to water them. If we have severe drought, I might throw some water on them every 10 days, every 2 weeks. That's pretty low maintenance for summertime, full sun in North Texas. They do very well. Word of caution, the little points are dangerous. They can poke into your skin and hurt you. So I just get my scissors and I clip off the ends. So no pokies. Wandering Jew, I know some people are laughing. Some people hate this plant, but if you know about it, you know you can just break off a little stem and bury it in the ground, and you've got a little patch of it, and then you can share it with friends and family. I like it for filling in little empty spots if I don't really know what I want to plant there yet, or use it as like a filler in a pot or a hanging basket. I will put those in there because it's cheap, you know, because it's free and it propagates very well. And if you get tired of if it's overgrown, just use your hands, break it off, stick it in your compost. It makes wonderful compost because the leaves are very moist. Fuzzy Jew is kind of a cousin of the purple heart. It has a little cute little purple flower on it and fuzzy leaves. Again, break off a little piece, stick it in the ground. All my neighbors and friends and family have this plant because of me. Moss rose is another good one. That's more drought tolerant than most of your annuals because it's a succulent. Abelia, Rose Creek Abelia. I have found, okay, the label on this says part sun to sun. The ones that I have planted in part sun don't perform as well. They survive, but they're really happy in full sun or that western sun, you know, that hot sun. So if you've got a wall that gets that western sun exposure and you keep killing things or frying and dying, put some Rose Creek Abelias there. They will thank you. They will grow thick and lush. They flower. And you will always see that I put lamb's ears everywhere. So I've got them kind of highlighting these Abelias in part of my backyard. Vinca. Now, no, this one's not classified as like super drought tolerant, but if you have to have an annual flower that gives you some like pizzazz and maybe some attention from the road, people driving by, Vinca is great. It's not as thirsty and needy as other annuals, and it's heat tolerant. I plant these in my pots. You know, and as you know, pots in Texas are sometimes not a great idea, but these things do quite well. They are much hardier than, you know, pansies and stuff don't like our heat, but they're much hardier than the other flowering annuals that we have. Oh, and also I only recommend Cora Vinca. I don't know if you've heard, but the other vinca varieties are susceptible to a bad disease that can lay in your soil for up to 7 years. So a professor at Texas A&M has said, for now, only buy Cora vinca because they have found that it is resistant to that horrible, horrible disease. So this is the only kind I'll buy. Herbs, okay? I had to show off my little Peggy Martin here behind my herb garden this year. I put some cattle fencing. It's like chicken wiring, but a little more hardy, I guess. I put 2 panels on here. So this is over 16 feet wide. And I just let it grow wild on there because I wanted to see a prettier picture rather than just brown fence. I also use that cattle fencing to attach my tomatoes. I've got a little tomato here. I usually grow a couple of tomatoes, but all these herbs just grow so well. Oregano, thyme, rosemary, there's more, but we're limited on time. Those do very well in drought situations, and they grow as ground covers. The oregano, thyme, they come back year after year, so you'll never have to buy those herbs if you plant those. Now, cilantro is a cool season herb, so that's not one I'm recommending. In the cool season, yes, but once summer hits, cilantro will just shrivel up, okay? So do your research, make sure you get drought-tolerant herbs. Adagio grass, the maiden grass. I touched on this, and what do you know? There's some lamb's ear right there and some lantana that I planted, and there's my crepe myrtle that my mother-in-law gave me as a little weed. She found it growing, and so I planted it, and it became a beautiful crepe myrtle. Liriope, this is also, you know, this is kind of an old school plant. Grandma might have had it. You know, it's underappreciated. If you want something that's low maintenance, plant this. It's very drought tolerant. You can get the variegated variety or the green. Just make sure you trim it down around February so that it gets that fresh green flush. I only recommend muscari because the spicata, I feel like it's too aggressive. If you want a carpet of this somewhere, get spicata, but it can be overwhelming if you do. So just be careful. Catmint, this is my new favorite plant this year. It changes every year, but this is my favorite one. Very easy to propagate catmint. Now make sure, depending on, you know, which variety you have, make sure it's okay to propagate that plant, but very easy. It grows like crazy. It's one of the first plants to come out in the spring. I've decided going forward, that's what I want. I want the plants that come out of the ground, the perennials that come out really early, because it just makes me so happy to see that first thing in the year. And I'm telling you, it blooms its heart out, and the pollinators love it. Russian sage, it's a little taller, but it's got that same purple. What I do with this one is when it starts to grow in the spring, I shear it down. It's really hard to do, but I go ahead and do that so that it's bushier, full sun only. It does not do well in part sun. It flops over. Hardy hibiscus, if you want a lot, you know, a lot of people say, what can I plant that has big flowers on it? Hardy hibiscus, don't get the tropical, those will die. Hardy will come back year after year, bigger and bigger. This is a really good one. Dwarf Hamlin grass, it's got a funny spelling to it, very drought tolerant, very short. I just like that movement in my yard. So as you can see, I've kind of planted it all over in my different flower beds. It just highlights what's in front of it and what's behind it. Dianthus, we talked about this earlier. That is a biennial plant. It's got a 2-year life cycle, but pretty much a perennial. It won't bloom or give you a show when it's hot, but cool and fall season, spring and fall, it's going to show off for you. Very drought tolerant, but you know, after it's established. Sedum, only purchase cold hardy varieties. Like I said earlier, I don't like to bring in potted plants anymore. First of all, I feel like you're bringing in potential insects and insect eggs and critters, which gives me the heebie-jeebies. So I just want to keep all my pots outside. So I have a new rule. If you can't make it outside all year long in a pot, I don't want you. I gave all those plants away. So look at this. This is that yellow sedum. This one again is what a friend gave me. I always try to keep my plant tags so I can tell people, oh, it's this, this, this. But it's a sedum. Again, there's all different kinds of sedums. There's red sedums, yellow sedums. This one I believe is called Blue Mountains blue mountain sedum or something like that. But it just does so well in this pot. It comes back year after year. This is that same yellow flowering sedum. And then this is a different kind. This is a different kind. They're all cuttings that I got from other friends. So I'm sorry, I don't have the exact names, but if it's cold hardy, get it. And it's so easy to propagate these succulents. Sedum is a succulent. Just break a piece off, plant it. There you go. You've got more plants and then you can share. Chinese evergreen. I know this is kind of weird that I'm recommending this one. The reason is because I've had this plant and I've propagated it for a long time, probably for like 10, 15 years. My mom started me on this. It's a great house plant for low sun areas. If you've got kind of a, bad windows in the house, like my house, or if you've got a shady patio, those Boston ferns that we like to buy, what happens when you forget to water it? It throws a fit. The leaves defoliate, they crinkle up, turn brown, and then your patio's a mess, right? I don't want a plant like that. I want to enjoy my yard, go on vacation if I want to for a week and not worry about, oh, I've got to go water my fern. If you want something green on your patio, get this plant. It's called Chinese evergreen. And you basically water it like a cactus, okay? Not sun, it'll scorch in the sun, but on a shady, part shade patio, it can get a few hours of sun. Only water it when that pot is about half dried out, okay? If you stick your fingers all the way in and it's dry, it's time to water. Otherwise, don't, because it will die if it's overwatered. It thrives on neglect. So I do highly recommend this one for inside and outside for a low maintenance, green, beautiful plant. Okay, we're gonna get into those websites now. I talked to you about some of my favorite plants. That's not the entire list. I would be here for several days if I was sharing all my favorite plants. This is a great website, texassmartscape.com. The website's here at the bottom, txsmartscape.com. When you go to this website, click on this right here, search plant database. You will see plant pictures. You can select from the drop-down menu how you're applying that plant. Do you want evergreen? Do you want native? Do you want full sun, full shade? Do you want a ground cover? So, it's overwhelming when you go to the store because you don't really know what's what, especially if you're a newbie, but this will help you get started. You can actually print out a list and go to the store with that shopping list. And of course, with my PDFs that we're sending you. Here's another website. It's the Native Plant Society of Texas. What's great about this website, of course, you can find a 40 plus page of natives, okay? What's another great thing is a lot of people, especially my students, because I'm always saying plant natives, plant natives, plant natives. Well, where do I get these natives? It's hard sometimes to go to these big box stores. And sometimes, you don't have knowledgeable employees, so you don't really know what to get. If you go to resources on this website and then go to nice native plant partners, you will see stores that sell native plants. Okay, it'll give you that information so you can go there. A lot of good recommendations on there. The website is npsot.org. So another shopping list, you'll find stores and plants on this website. All free, of course. Here's another one, texassuperstar.com. These are going to be the tried and true, the ones that withstand our element, our hot temperatures, drought. Go to this website for recommendations. All right, before I conclude, I'd like to ask you, how does this make you feel? When you see these holes in your leaves, you planted, you're out there taking care of your plants, living on them. When you see this, how does it make you feel? Most people in the public, when I talk to them, they'll say, ugh, I hear a lot of that. Well, we need to change our thinking. Things to consider, okay? That bug that's munching on your leaves, it might be a bug that's going to feed some baby birds or a toad or a lizard, okay? Your backyard is nature's kitchen. Don't forget that. So use pesticides and fertilizers really minimally, mindfully, and selectively. Don't overuse. More is not better. Think about who or what will come in contact with that toxin you've sprayed or the powder you put out. Can you manually remove that problem? You know, a lot of people ask me, what do I do about the grasshoppers on my cannas, or the roly-polies on my salvia? Or, you know, I hear a lot of complaints about different bugs. And I always ask them, well, instead of asking me about a chemical you can apply, can you just use your fingers or scissors and cut those ugly Swiss cheese looking leaves off your canna? Or maybe you should not plant those anymore. Maybe you should plant some different varieties. So think about that. I just, you know, honestly, when I go out in my yard now, when I was a younger gardener, I would see holes and say, I need to go to the store and get some spray. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like who I was back then. I'm so glad I've been educated and know now that I need to share my backyard with nature. Okay. So I don't use any chemicals anymore. I just, if I see holes, my heart is warm because I know it fed our nature, our birds and lizards. Is there an organic or less aggressive solution? Okay, is chewing going to kill it or just make it look ugly temporarily? Can I simply trim off the ugly leaves? Okay, think about all these things next time you reach for that bottle of such and such toxin. You're feeding nature. Think about those guys. If you went out to your yard and didn't have any holes in your leaves, I would be concerned about your yard. It's too sterile. Something's not right. You want bees and butterflies and moths and wasps. You want all of those to visit your yard. Okay. There you go. So hopefully that has changed your thinking. When you see these chew marks, just be thankful that they came to your yard to munch. Okay. No more toxins. All right. So that we're concluding our session here. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And if you're not familiar, our Tarrant County Master Gardener Helpline number is 817-884-1944. You can call us Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. with any question you have. It could be about bugs. It could be about something funny on your plant. Maybe your plant's not growing well. If you want a list of such and such plants, give us a call, or you can email us and we'll be happy to help you. I am done. Any questions?
There are a couple in chat. Robert wants to know, why wouldn't it be okay to propagate some catmint? He said it would not be appropriate.
It's okay, and it's not just a catmint, but the reason I say that is just to be on the safe side, because let's say it's a certain brand of rose or catmint. Like in that case, it said Walker's Low. It has been, what's the term, guys? Help me out. Not copywritten, but what's the term for, what is it?
Cloned?
No, not cloned, but you know, there's a person who actually helped create that hybrid or the variety, and they don't want you propagating it for free. They want to make money from it. So there are certain rules to protect those growers. So I just say be careful. I don't want to say, oh, go and propagate everything and then get in trouble for it. So just be careful. You may have to Google to see if it's allowed for you to propagate something. But just wanted you to be on the safe side.
Okay. And you're thinking about asexual propagation, maybe, because that's what you're doing when you're propagating that way, right?
Yeah, you're basically cloning the plant to be exactly where, yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Martha said she bought a hardy hibiscus last year, babied it through the lack of rain, and they didn't come back this year. Is there something you would suggest?
I'd say try again. Honestly, if you planted it during the drought, you know, anything that is considered even natives or drought tolerant, you really have to make sure that it's established well and planted at the correct season. Some plants are better established if you plant them in the fall, like trees. Nurseries and plant stores will throw out all these trees for sale in spring, right? When in actuality, it's actually better to plant trees in the fall so that they don't have to go through that hot summer without their established roots. It's actually better to plant them in the fall, but you know, it really just depends on the plant. Maybe it was planted at a very stressful time. I would say try again. I mean, even master gardeners, citizen foresters with trees. Everybody kills something now and then. So don't be hard on yourself. Just give it another try.
Okay. How do you propagate Gara?
Which one?
Gara?
With Gara, I've never done cuttings with that one because honestly, it's so prolific. I'll just see little babies pop up everywhere. And, my mom and mother-in-law now have them, and they always mistake the babies as weeds, but you have to really kind of examine those babies to see what it is. And my mother-in-law came over one day. She's like, how do you have all these Gara? Like, did you get them on sale? I'm like, no, they're just babies that I plucked from where they shouldn't be, if you will, weed at that point. And then I planted where I want it to be. But my mother-in-law was plucking them. She had them too, but she was plucking them thinking they were weeds. So seed is going to be the best way for that, just because it's so prolific. For instance, cannas, you never want to propagate by seed. Why would you? You would just dig it up and divide the root. Every plant has its better way of propagation. So just do a quick Google search on the plant you want to propagate and see what they recommend. And I would follow that suggestion.
Okay. Alexa, I think we answered this earlier. You will get a copy of the slides. You will get a copy of the presentation, actually, is what you will receive. Mm-hmm. So you will have that to look at.
Yes.
And it will be sent probably in a few days.
Yes.
Robert.
And you don't even have to wait. You can go to those websites I gave you to do, right after this, just take a look. You will see all types of plant recommendations. And I highly recommend that you only buy off those lists. Don't waste your money.
Okay. And Robert, on the asexual propagation, he said it's probably trademark plant or it's protected, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's okay. What I was trying to say. I think there's another term for it too, but yes.
Yeah, proprietary, whatever. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see. Anna Maria says, I have two pecan trees that have dark spots and are not good to eat. Pecans are not good to eat. What do I need to do for better harvest?
Okay. Pecans, honestly, I've talked to so many arborists about them. They get weevils. And if you open up their nuts, you'll see that the nut's not good. It's just not edible. They really need to, and I hate to say this, they really need to be on some type of pest management here in our area to be productive.
Okay.
Actually, there is an article on Texas A&M AgriLife Extension's website. It's called, I believe it's called Diseases of Peaches, Plums, and Other Fruiting Trees. Very descriptive on the treatment program and what you need. If you can't find it, give us a call and we'll send you that document.
Okay. I don't see any more questions.
Okay.
If you want to be unmuted, you could raise your hand and Nancy will unmute you so that you can ask your questions. I still don't see any more. I guess
you covered everything. Answered all the questions.
Yeah, you covered everything, Loretta.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time tonight. I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to give us a call or email us with any other questions.
Okay.